رَبَّنَا لَا تَجْعَلْنَا فِتْنَةً لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Very heavy ayah. Our Master, do not turn us into a trial for those who disbelieve. What this means, some have interpreted this to mean that Allah, don't make us the test subjects for the crimes of the disbelievers. And the disbelievers are going to do all kinds of atrocities. Don't use us as the victims of their atrocities. That's one interpretation. And this dua is important, especially for the Sahabi who's concerned about his family. Ya Allah, don't make my family victims of the crimes of the kuffar, you know. But the other very interesting meaning that Imam Razi rahimahullah took from this ayah, very heavy. He says that Allah, don't make us fitna for those who disbelieve, implies that we, our behavior, our course of action, our lack of character, our lack of truthfulness will become proof for disbelievers to want to remain disbelievers. They won't be interested in Islam because they see Muslims. Allah, don't make us a fitna, because we will become the fitna for the disbeliever, because a fitna is something that keeps you from guidance. It attacks you and it turns you off. You know, it becomes a difficult trial for you, an obstacle in the path of truth. Ya Allah, don't make us, the Muslims, an obstacle in people coming to Islam. SubhanAllah, we need this dua more than ever before today. رَبَّنَا لَا تَجْعَلْنَا فِتْنَةً لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. How many things that are just literally turn-offs from the Muslims that people assume must be a part of Islam, that are in our behavior, in our character, in the way we conduct ourselves individually and as a people, that just, you know, why would anybody want to do anything with Islam? Why would they want that? You know, you can yell and scream that the system of government in the West is corrupt, or that it's, you know, unjust and it's not the law of Allah or whatever. What have you done? Well, you, a fifth of the world's population, what justice do you have? Some of the most corrupt individuals in positions of power, some of the most corrupt business practices, some of the most, you know, the most corrupt nations in the world by any index on top, Muslim. And then we're like, oh man, we lost number 8 spot to some, you know, polytheist nation or somebody else. Man, I thought we were going to get the top 10. You know, at least we're on the top in some index, right? That's our rationale. But this is رَبَّنَا لَا تَجْعَلْنَا فِتْنَةً لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Islam is something the entire world needs. But today, the world says, why would I want Islam? Look at these people. You want us to be like that? And I have nothing to say in response. I have nothing to say. What am I going to discuss? Theory? What am I going to discuss? The Khilafah of Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu anhu? Why, at his time there was a lot of justice. That's beautiful. That was a lot of justice. What's happening now? There was I saw this debate. I don't recommend watching it. I won't tell you where it is. It was this debate between atheists who are against Sharia law. So I was curious. And they were debating Ahmadis of all things. Funniest thing ever. Like frying pan and fire, having a debate. It was pretty funny. But anyway, you know, I just wanted to hear what the atheists have to say. What do they have to say? And the guys, you know, the Qadianis, 90% of what they say is basically what Sunnis say. They add the poison at the last 10%. That's what they do. So their arguments were, you know, Islam doesn't oppress women, this, that, the other. He didn't say, the Qadiani guy didn't say anything I wouldn't have said. Or any other Muslim wouldn't have said. And the atheist responds and says, that's really nice. It's beautiful. That's not what's happening though. Here's what's happening. Here are the statistics. Here's this. Here's what your courts do. Here's what your judges are doing. Here's what's happening with women over here. Here's what's happening over here. This is Sharia that exists. You're talking about a Sharia in some book somewhere. I'm saying the Sharia that exists should not exist. That's all I'm saying. And I got nothing to say. Like, yeah. Because if the law of Islam is being used to perpetuate injustice and is being manipulated, then we have to clean house before we can make any real da'wah. At the individual level, da'wah will go on, but at the institution, at the level of an ummah, we're not calling people to anything. We're not in a position to be writing letters. You know, like Rasul wrote letters to heads of state, right? He wrote letters. Why? Because he could show a society based on Islam. Come see what it looks like. Who are we going to write a letter to? What are we going to write a letter to? We have a lot of cleaning to do. There's a lot of laundry needs to be done before we show people what this deen really is. You know? رَبَّنَا لَا تَجْعَلْنَا فِتْنَةً لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا وَاغْفِرْ لَنَا رَبَّنَا, and forgive us, our Master. إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. Certainly you are the ultimate authority. You're all wise. Now, I'll add one more thing to this. How much damage has been done to the da'wah of Islam by the singular events of 9/11? How much, like every conversation with a non-Muslim about Islam somehow ends up in terrorism, yes or no? The actions of a few have become a fitna for millions, if not billions, to never consider Islam. They won't consider it. That's crazy. These people are crazy. I'm talking, and you could say there are political reasons, there are economic reasons, there's this. Yes, great. But they're not Islamic reasons. They're not Islamic. But the behavior of Muslims is automatically assumed to be Islam itself. It's automatically assumed to be Islam. And there's no way around that. There's no escape. No, some Muslims act that way, but that's not really Islam. That we can have that conversation among ourselves. There is no point having that conversation with the outside world, because the outside world, all they know of Islam is what Muslims do. They're not interested in Islam that comes from a book. They're interested in seeing what does Islam do in life? How is it affecting the world? And that's why the irresponsibility of a few can destroy the work of da'wah. It completely, utterly annihilate it. And that's why the practical manifestations of our deen and living up to the pre-teachings of our deen is actually what's the real shahada ala nas. That's the real witness against humanity. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِيهِمْ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. In all of them, meaning Ibrahim and his followers who stood up to falsehood, for you there is a role model, a beautiful role model. لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُ اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرَةِ. For whoever would believe, whoever would be hopeful of Allah in the last day. وَمَنْ يَتَوَلَّى فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْغَنِيُّ الْحَمِيدُ. And whoever would turn back, then certainly Allah, in fact, He is the ultimately free of need. And He's the one that is praised in and of Himself. Al-Ghani means someone who doesn't need anybody else. And it's an ism sifa, which means it's constant. He's never going to be in a position where he needs anybody else. Completely independent. That's ghina. When Allah says aghna, the fi'l aghna is to make somebody free of need, to make somebody independent. That's aghna. Then there's the word hamid. Now there are two words in Arabic, hamid and mahmud. Mahmud is ism maf'ul, which means someone whose hamd is done. It's the done to. It's the ism maf'ul. You haven't learned this kind of ism maf'ul yet, but you know some other ism maf'uls, right? So it's the done to noun. So mahmud means the one whose hamd is done. Hamid is also bi ma'na al-mahmud. They say this pattern is in the meaning of maf'ul. But the benefit of this word in particular is the one who is praised, and instead of even making assumption that he is praised by someone, that by someone isn't even mentioned. Whether someone's around or not, he still has praise. See, in Mahmud, you have to have someone, there's a majhul, there's somebody missing. Who's doing the praise? There's somebody in the mystery linguistically. In Hamid, there is no mystery. He's praised in and of himself, whether somebody's around or not. So no existence, no other creation should have to exist for Allah to be Hamid. But something needs to exist for somebody to be Mahmud. Okay? So Allah uses the word Hamid like, yeah, if you turn away from the religion, I'm Hamid. I don't need you. And it's not like I need anybody else to praise me either, because I'm Hamid. If the only time you're praised is when some others praise you, then you're Mahmud. So no one but Allah is Hamid, really. In the true sense, no one but Allah is Hamid. Somebody could be Mahmud. Somebody could be Mahmud, but nobody can be Hamid but Allah Azza wa Jalla. عَسَى اللَّهُ أَنْ يَجْعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ وَبَيْنَ الَّذِينَ عَادَيْتُم مِّنْهُمْ مَوَدَّةً. It may well be that Allah might make between you and those that you have had animosity towards love. It might happen. It might be that when they see Islam conquer, they might say, I've been holding on Islam all this time, I might as well la ilaha illallah. And they might come into Islam. وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا. Multitudes of people will come into Islam. The majority of Makkah will come into Islam. When the 4 months in Surah At-Tawbah were given, get your act together or get out of here, or pick up your sword, most people accepted Islam. They had 4 months to think about it, they weren't forced. Somebody wants to come and ask questions, don't be harsh with them, that was the policy. You know, فَأَجِرْهُ حَتَّى يَسْمَعَ كَلَامَ اللَّهِ ثُمَّ أَبْلِغْهُ مَأْمَنًا ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَوْمٌ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. That's because they have no idea. If somebody comes to you and asking for, I didn't hear the message of Islam, give him time. So Allah says it might be that once the victory comes, that animosity might be removed. And there's a hope of that. Wallahu qadirun, and Allah is in control. Wallahu ghafurun rahim, and Allah is extremely forgiving, always merciful.